Hello and welcome to Pandora Astrology's monthly horoscope for April of 2023. We are the astrologers of Pandora Astrology. I'm Jamie Kale Miller. I'm in Berkeley, California.
And I'm Julia Mijas, and I'm in San Francisco, California.
Okay, let's take a look at what's happening in April. Well, happy birthday, Taurus. If you haven't scheduled your yearly birthday reading yet, there's still time to do it before your birthday, which is the most powerful time to do it. Not the only time, but the most powerful one. This lets you ritualize your personal New Year's moment and jump into your year empowered to make it the best one ever. It also comes with fantastic affirmations you can use all year to create your best life. You'll find a link for it in the description below. Let's start with Ceres, which is retrograde right now in your 5th house of creation, recreation, and procreation, fun, pleasure, and play. Ceres has been retrograde since early February, so for quite a while. It started out by going retrograde in your 6th house in Libra, and if you want to know more about that, you can check your horoscopes for a couple of months going back. But now that it's arrived in your 5th house and is proceeding along through Virgo, this changes the tone of it a little bit. So what's Ceres about? Ceres is about the things that connect us to the physical world. And when Ceres goes retrograde, some of those things can go awry. And you'll see the results of this in your relationship to your body and your physical care routines that support your health, and also in your food and eating, and in your finances and how you handle money. So Ceres backing up into the 5th house. And there's always a caution that I like to say when Ceres is in the 5th house or in its corresponding sign of Leo, which is that this can be spendy. This is a house of fun and play, and also gambling and speculation. So if you do at all speculate or gamble, then this transit may be asking you to look at your habits around that, what you're doing around that, to be more organized around that. And I'm not saying never gamble, because I know some people really succeed with it, and they've got like their method, right, that works for them. And so I'm not saying you shouldn't be one of those people, but I am saying that this particular transit is likely to really make you have to sort of, step back on your heels and look at your situation and ask yourself, are you organized enough about it? Do you really know what's happening with the details of your money? And also, even if you're not, somebody who engages in gambling, how can you gamify your money? How could you make your finances a little bit more fun to manage? That would be another really great use of Ceres retrograde in your 5th house. So Ceres is going to go direct in early May, and we'll be talking about this more when we get there. Juno is traveling along through the sign of Taurus right here in your 1st house. This is your sign, Taurus. And so when Juno is in your sign, it can really amp up your social abilities. Juno is a networker, a matchmaker, a connector of people to each other. Juno is also the archetypal spouse of the zodiac, you might say. And so if you are partnered right now, whether that's married or just, in a long-term committed relationship, you might find this month, with Juno passing through your 1st house of self-identity, that you're identifying with that partnership more than usual, that you want to be seen with your partner, and that your partnership, if it's going well, is supporting your sense of yourself and your healthy boundaries. And if it's not going well, that it might be negatively impacting your identity. And so that's a real consideration. Juno's going to continue in this house all month. And on May 1st, it's going to enter Gemini and shift over to your second house. We'll talk about that when it comes. Hey, Julia, what is up with the Mercury, Venus, and Mars for the Tauruses of the world, especially Venus, because Venus traditionally rules Taurus, and so that might be of interest.
Definitely. Well, we can start with Venus. Venus begins the month in your own sign. So that's your first house. And this is a great place for Venus to be for you, because that means that you're really like your own Venus vibes are going to be super amped up. Now, Venus represents beauty and relationships. So you yourself are going to be looking more beautiful. It's a great time to do anything to sort of upgrade your appearance in some way. It's a wonderful time for the single Tauruses to date. Then by April 10th, Venus enters your second house. This is a money house. It's a house of possessions, and it's a very sensual house. You know, Venus is exalted in this house. So for the rest of the month after April 10th, it's going to be a great time to do things to just treat yourself. Get a massage, buy something you enjoy. You'll also probably be, you know, even more hungry than usual, wanting to sort of like seek pleasure through your senses for the rest of the month. And it can be a good time for just money in general, you know, get a little bit of money luck, or maybe somebody gives you something nice. Now, Mercury, the planet that represents your mind, only spends the first few days at the beginning of the month in the 12th house, where it was mostly last month, where, you know, maybe you were more likely to keep your thoughts to yourself because the 12th house is such an isolated place. But on April 3rd, Mercury enters your first, and you're going to want to be heard. You know, you're going to be a little bit more loud and proud about what you have to say, and as well as more articulate than usual. It's a good time to make first impressions on others using your mind. But by April 21st, Mercury is going to go retrograde in your first house. And that is going to be a period where actually you're going to probably feel a lot more misunderstood by other people. Like you try to be as clear as possible with what you've got to say, and other people are just walking away from that conversation totally confused or getting the wrong impression. So there might be a lot of going back and having to straight out communications, you know, towards the end of the month and also into May. And then finally, Mars, Mr. Feisty, a little more challenging than Mercury and Venus, is going to spend all month in your third house. So this is a house of communication. And again, with Mercury going retrograde sort of towards the end of the month and being misunderstood, you also might be a lot more direct and even a little more aggressive with how you communicate. And maybe that's what leads to the misunderstandings and frustrations, because you're just thinking, I'm being so direct, and yet they're not quite getting what I'm having to say. So Mars can also bring frustrations. You might be frustrated with communication too, with Mars in the third. And since the third also rules your siblings or your cousins, this can be a time of maybe being very competitive with them, maybe vying for your parents, you know, your parents' favor on certain things. And it might be a time where if you commute, if you take short journeys in any way, you might run into traffic, frustrations, car issues, because the third house represents your local area.
Yes, indeed. Hi, Jamie here. Before we continue, I just want to take a quick moment to thank you for watching this video. And if you're enjoying this content, please consider becoming a patron on Patreon. Our lowest tier starts at just $5 a month and gives you early access to these monthly horoscope readings. Your support helps keep this content free. The link can be found in the description box below. Thanks again, and let's get back to the video. I want to tell you about a couple of moons going on this month, beginning with the full moon in Aries, right here, full moon in Libra, falling in your 6th house, opposite the sun in your 12th house. We're calling this one Make Every Action Wholesome, because despite that the moon is in Libra, and you would think that because Libra is an air sign and a very sort of diplomatic sign, that this would be like a gentle, sweet, nice, and kind full moon. But that moon has to face off against Jupiter, Chiron, and the sun, all in very boisterous, very feisty Aries. So it's really an action-packed moon, and there has to be some balancing of that action with the diplomacy and the niceness. So the moon itself lands in your 6th house. So where you might really notice the impact of this moon would be in the arena of work, health, service, and personal organization. So in other words, you might find that that you're really having to be diplomatic on the job and be relatable, but that there are these unconscious urges. And I'm saying that because the Sun, Chiron, and Jupiter are all traveling through the 12th house in that feisty sign of Aries. And they may be sort of poking you and saying like, oh, I want to do this and I want to do that and I want this and I want that other thing. And the moon in Libra is like, no, put a little sugar on it, please, honey coated, and let's just make this nicer and think of other people, be considerate. And so that's the battle that's going on here. And so, paying attention to your actions, that especially the ones that may stem from a more unconscious side of yourself, is so important to do. And I'll return to that thought when I speak of the second moon this month in a minute. But before I do that, I want to say that we have a seasonal change. And that happens on the 20th when the sun moves into Taurus, which again is your sign. And so that means that if you're a sun in Taurus, that birthday time is upon us. And so when the sun moves into your 1st house, whether you are a sun in Taurus or a Taurus rising, it is such a great time to just bask in the attention of the people around you. And if it's birthday time, like, let people pay attention to you. Let yourself shine. Let yourself be seen. Let your actions proclaim who you are. That's really what the 1st house is all about. And notice that over the course of the month, there's been this big migration of groups of planets, and I'll show this to you up here in your 12th house, which is a house of the unconscious and of retreat and, more metaphysical than physical realities. And so that's a time when you're kind of gathering your energies for your new cycle to begin. And that beginning happens when the sun moves ahead into Taurus and either crosses your ascendant if you're a Taurus rising, or brings about your birthday if you're a Taurus sun. And that is when your new year is born, and there's such a strong feeling of like, I got to get started with this new year and leap into it and be ready for it. And so as the planets migrate here into your 1st house, so much of the focus is about the actions that you take and bringing it from the hidden realms of the unconscious into the conscious, and letting it be seen. So then I want to tell you about the other moon of this month, which actually happens the day before the seasonal change, and that's a solar eclipse in Aries, which lands right here in your 12th house. And so it's not just a typical new moon, it's an eclipse, which we know because the North Node is here very close to that moon. And it happens in 29 degrees of Aries. And we said so much about this in the video about it, which is on our monthly forecast page at pandoraastrology.com. So definitely check that. But a new moon usually has a feeling of new beginnings, which this one does. But these are definitely seeds planted in darkness because this lands in your 12th house, the house of mysteries, the house of the unseen, the house of that which has not yet manifested, of dreams, imagination, and spirit. And so this eclipse, and eclipses show us our shadow. That's the thing about eclipses. That's why they're so dreaded, this particular eclipse might cause you to show some shadow behavior that truly stems from stuff buried in your unconscious that you just didn't even know was there. It might be karma from past lives. It might be ancestral karma or heritage trauma that landed with you from your family. It might be childhood stuff that happened that you've forgotten about or just misplaced in the back of your mind. And so under this eclipse, it is so important to be aware of the behaviors that you do and ask yourself whether they might stem from some ancient trauma that you haven't looked at in a really long time. And also to look at the potential outcomes of your behaviors and how they may impact later years to come in this life and even future lives as well. So it's a pretty intense and heavy solar eclipse, and you really might want to check the video about it. We're calling it Volcanic Actions Tempered by Sympathy. And yeah, definitely check the video to find out more.
If you love Pandora Astrology's free and informative horoscopes, please do hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and share our horoscopes with your friends.
We make these horoscopes for you for free. And if you appreciate it, supporting us on Patreon is the best way to show it. Share our horoscopes with your friends too. Have a beautiful April. And until next time, we'll see you around the cosmos.
Bye-bye.